Starting point really was my return from Washington to Bangalore, when it struck me that public dissatisfaction with essential services in the city of Bangalore was really a major problem. It struck me that while people are helpless, they are unable to do anything as a group, that is collective action, in order to deal with this problem. That really is what led me to the concept of a citizen report card. After the first report card, Salil Shetty, he was at that time an Action Aid, he and I organized a seminar in the city. So that was I would say, the first effort to support citizen action. In other words, encouraging people to take interest. Madhappa was my right-hand support. Murthy, he was director of IIMB.
The first informal meeting of PAC took place right in this place. You know.
But once you become a legal entity like a registered society, which is what Public Affairs Center was, then a number of requirements have to be met. For example, setting up the board. And from among the staff, I decided to ask Suresh Balakrishnan at that time. He would have been among the more senior, more experienced.
I joined Public Affairs Center in 1996, and that was a fairly defining moment in the history of PAC. It was a time when we came with a great deal of success with CRCs.
After Suresh, after a few years, Gopakumar Thambi was appointed as director.
We all came at a point in time to PAC when it was just beginning to coalesce itself as an institution, as a permanent aspiration. So the initial ideology, the vision, the character that Dr. Paul wanted to infuse into a movement like this affected all of us.
And it is when he left the organization that Suresh came over.
Dr. Paul worked hard to create an institution, an institutional network out of what essentially was a simple basic idea, that of getting citizens to participate with their experience and their ideas in the process of government.
To show the power of a simple idea use that potential that every ordinary citizen, him or her, has.
So we saw contestation as a means to create a level playing field, which then made it possible for communities to dialogue with powerful actors like the state.
And a couple of things stand out. One, the creation of Public Affairs Center was at a time when similar institutions did not exist in India.
And for a moment it looked like PAC was CRC and nothing more.
The first report card was done in 1994 for the city of Bangalore.
In simple terms, a report card is a grade that citizens give to a government or its agencies based on their perspective. By aggregating the data and analyzing them, interpreting the findings, we are able to indicate how a government has performed or how a public agency has delivered its services.
In a very organized manner, in a very scientific manner, getting the inputs from the people, getting the feedback from the people, and then making use of those kinds of feedback in policy making, decision making. My first experience with PAC occupies a prime position.
These citizens' reports, therefore, have given me the needed material on the basis of which I can proceed further and attack those departments which are most corrupt among the departments of the government. See, on the basis of this, when I have done it, see, several crores of rupees corruption has come out.
We try to combine generation of knowledge, that is what research is, creating new knowledge and information, with support to citizen action so that the knowledge gets translated into impact on the ground, and citizens are the medium. So if you look at the early activities of PAC meetings in the city, discussing the budget, discussing specific public service issues, talking about corruption, all these were part of that model of using knowledge in order to motivate and stimulate people to act or do something about those things.
We identified 3 important other dimensions to look at. The first was to start looking at leaders, the people who are supposed to make a difference, and that meant getting closer to elections and the process through which leaders could be influenced. Second was to look at people in their large numbers in terms of how they stand up for what is right. And the third was to think about the future.
Along the way, we thought it was a good idea to focus on children because they will be the future active citizens. And therefore, should we have an organization or an initiative that will go to schools and create greater awareness and involvement on the part of children? That was the beginning of the CMCA.
Within PAC's larger context of strengthening civil society, strengthening governance, working with children made a lot of sense because shaping the building blocks of civil society from from a very young age will pay rich dividends in terms of longer term strengthening of civil society.
Today we have about 400 civic clubs across the country with more than 300 volunteers.
Although it was citizen-centric from the very beginning, and we thought the challenge was really to get people to demand better governance, it soon became clear that you also have to respond to the needs of government. Then the international dimension, which I had not thought about at the beginning, because my focus was on Bangalore, our country, India. The methods that we were developing turned out to be of equal interest to other countries.
So the government would like to know how about the opinion of people on public services, how they are satisfied with the public services, and we would like to get their feedback when they're using the public services. Based on that one, we would like to improve.
I think this is good news to change government mind, to change them what.
So pretty soon we began to deal with governments, go to them very often, invite them, see the results of our work, and when some of them responded, invite them to internalize some of this in their own working. That's how the advisory services and later on the setting up of the Public Affairs Foundation also took place.
The Public Affairs Foundation started out as a very small organization for just one and maybe later a couple of other people, and even now it's a small organization by design. And the Public Affairs Foundation now takes up various consulting assignments which are related to the use of Citizen Report Card mainly, but also other social accountability tools. We have grown to do that as well.
This is the complementary relationship between the center and the foundation. One doing thinking and research, bringing out tools for action, and the foundation taking it forward by replicating it and doing consultancy on a fee basis across the world. But the future is unlimited, because governments across the world need this, especially in the developing world, and therefore the foundation will gain from the research done by the center, and the center will get the strength of the funding, partially at least, from the foundation.
It wasn't always smooth sailing for PAC, as Dr. Paul explained. Not everybody bought into this idea that citizen experience is central or valuable indeed. In fact, questions were raised about the qualifications of citizens to comment on public services. The range of experience that they have had, does it match the range of experience the government had in the design of programs?
The area where we got very heavily criticized at a certain point of time was CRCs themselves. There were people in the city who challenged the methodology, who challenged the sampling, and who raised questions, some of them which were valid, because sample surveys are sample surveys. We did, after that, spend a fair amount of time on validating the outcomes which we had hypothesized were related to the feedback which we were getting from citizens. And that we did during the millennial survey, where we looked at the feedback, we looked at the kind of perceptions that people had, and we correlated with the outcomes which were mapped, and we found that we could provide a fitting answer, saying that we were not just speculating.
PAC was instrumental in demonstrating the simplicity through which things can change and things can be done. The second is the power of evidence. Not always believing that shouting leads to change, but counting also leads to change, and how the power of empiricism and the power of facts and research has the ability to bring diverse stakeholders together. The third, I would say, is putting a model of constructive engagement. Knowing that differences exist, knowing that on one side you have the state and the other side you have society, the belief that there can be a bridge which can be built between them, which in the early 90s was a very, very radical step to take.
In a democratic country like ours, the governments and the government departments, the government servants, though they should be called public servants, but they rather fond of calling ourselves government servants. For all of them, the focus has to be the people. Our processes, our policies, our methodology of implementation, all this has to be focused on public, and particularly as police is concerned, the victims. From that point of view, the Public Affairs Center, the name itself, Public Affairs Center, it brings into focus the issues which just now we mentioned.
I remember how Dr. Ravindra, when the first CRC on Bangalore was done and BDA was rated the worst, he came over and he said, "Oh my God, it's so shameful, I'm heading this organization and it's been rated the worst."
Similarly, along the way we found corruption emerged as a major issue for the people. It was being flagged in one service after the other. We were able to compare. And that led to the production of that book that Guhan and I edited, Corruption in India, Agenda for Action.
The culmination, in a sense, was the dedication of the 2004 World Development Report to social accountability and providing citizen report cards a central space in that. That is not just recognition, but also telling the world that social accountability has come to stay. The citizen report card itself has assumed new forms as we at PAC come into contact with other tools of social accountability, such as public expenditure tracking systems, budget tracking, and so on. Besides, we cannot be ignorant of the emerging ideas regarding organizational learning and systems analysis.
PGRG basically carries forward the tradition of PAC
which basically means that we are the ones who are carrying out the citizen report cards. And now naturally our ambit has increased, improved, so we have other social accountability tools also that we are using, which include tools like the community scorecard approach, budget analysis. A very good step in this direction has been that the Planning Commission has now put in place a certain fund which they have asked the state governments to take and to carry out CRCs in their own states.
CRC Plus is a new approach wherein we marry the principles, the good ideas that come from the CRC, namely that of giving expression to citizen voice. We marry those with ideas obtained from business process re-engineering, where we do systemic analysis of fund and material flow within public service organizations. Through the work of the Public Policy Research Group, we aim to provide a rigorous analysis of policies as they are formulated and their expression. Inevitably, the work of this group expresses itself in assessments of existing government programs from the angle of delivery and an analysis of the economics behind those programs. Are they worth it or not? In addition, the PPRG strives very hard to create comprehensive databases, especially with regard to urban governance, and this has resulted in our State of Cities work.
The Public Policy Research Group, PPRG as it is called, we do a lot of work that impacts intersectoral public policy issues, and we primarily aim at doing methodologically rigorous and policy relevant research which cuts across various sectors.
The Citizen Action Support Group began with interesting ideas on how to tackle corruption through coalitions of like-minded agencies within Bangalore and elsewhere. But over time, our mandate has grown to include an attempt, an effort to cleanse local areas of corruption altogether in major public schemes such as the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, the National Rural Health Mission, and the public distribution system.
But we see usually the dharnas and hartals, there is citizens' voice of a different kind. I mean, it's diverse and it is not coherent the way the government would like to hear it.
It is to our credit that the CASG has now projects in 6 states in 14 centers, as well as pilots in Sri Lanka and Nepal, where local communities have risen to the challenge of cleansing their local areas of corruption altogether.
And therefore here in our group what we try to do is to organize these thoughts and voices in an orderly manner that can be communicated to government in a more effective way.
And various expressions of this on ground through the creation of, say, maternity homes monitoring committees and so on. Over time, the Participatory Governance Research Group has begun to merge its activities with the Citizen Action Support Group, as it rightfully should, where research blends with action.
So that is what we try to do, give it a shape and size that can be really consumed by the government and it can act on it decisively. So that is our strategy.
The Environmental Governance Group, the ENGG, effectively encapsulates the work of all the other groups, in the sense that it has adapted the Citizen Report Card into what is now called the Climate Change Scorecard, where we explore this murky triangle between livelihoods, governance and the ecology, trying to create a scorecard where citizens can comment on how well or how poorly have laws responded to their on-ground needs in the face of active climate change.
The first project initiated the Gulf of Mannar project. The title is Enhancing Community-Centered Governance in Climate Change Affected Areas. we have used our, the scorecard. See, that is one of the beauty of our tool is, it can link to people and the governance structures. Because therefore we generate people's knowledge, people's wisdom. At the same time, they also need to give scientific knowledge and things like that. They will also empower. Therefore, there is an empowerment process happening.
Beyond this, the ENGG hopes to be able to look a little more closely at the problems of people in other eco-fragile regions, such as semi-arid regions, in mountainous areas which are prone to landslides and so on. They certainly intend to look at water balance, an important issue that's emerging as climate change intensifies over the world. Over 20 years now, PAC has moved into its own campus at Jigani in the outskirts of Bangalore. We have a state-of-the-art office supported by the best equipment. The 4 program teams are now serviced by a strong team led by the administrator, Mr. Iyer, who has computer specialists, accountants, and communication experts in his team. PAC has consciously limited its team to about 30 members. We believe that quality work arises out of intense confabulations within this team. However, our work needs to extend, and most of PAC's work is known because of the work of its partners in its rather vast network, ranging from civil society organizations to donor organizations to government agencies from the different states of India, and indeed in many countries around the world. PAF, and through its sister organization PAF, has extended its work effectively all over the world only because of the existence of a very strong network of interested stakeholders and supporters.
I recently met a gentleman from Pakistan. I didn't know him, but he walked into the room where I was sitting, and there was another colleague. And he sat down, and then he saw me, and then he stood up, and he said, "You are from PAC." Sir, hats off.
PAC has in sum grown from being an idea to now finally emerge as an organically whole think tank in its own right. And we're really proud to say that we are now recognized as one of the most important think tanks in South Asia through our partnership with IDRC in the Think Tank Initiative. We now feel proud to be in the brotherhood of about 40 think tanks across the world who debate and analyze issues similar to the ones that we are engaged in. It gives us a sense of strength and hope for the future.